Of you might be familiar with this phenomenon, the active clubs. At some point, I had the understanding that it makes sense to clarify or at least share my perspective on what the strategy is actually about, because there is a discussion within the research community if like any or every right-wing extremist group that is also involved in combat sports is therefore an active club, or if this is something very distinctive. And as you probably have guessed or maybe read in my publications, I'm of the opinion that this is a very specific, distinctive strategy. Now, here you can see a couple of pictures. That's a propaganda set, how the active club network in the US would like to be seen. It's about sports, it's about fitness, it's about activism, style, identity. As Hans mentioned, in my understanding, it is the largest active network. It is a somewhat new strategy. We'll discuss this. In the US, the purpose of this network, its creation, was to build a shadow militia, meaning an undercover, basically, military group that can be activated when the need for violent action on a larger scale, a classic Day X scenario, arises, and we can discuss what this could look like. The second objective is to avoid or withstand law enforcement interventions. The founders of this network and strategy have all experienced FBI raids at 3 o'clock in the morning. They thought they need to organize violent right-wing extremism in a different way. And so they came up with this strategy. And the third one is, of course, if you look like this and do interesting events, you reach out to, you have a corporate design, you have all these things that look potentially interesting to some people, you can grow the network. But I'm saying this very clearly, active clubs are not about combat sports, but aim to fool law enforcement. Some of the clubs in the US did not read the strategy properly and were actually posting that they were also involved in militia training. Now, other key points here to consider. Historical role models are the Minuteman militia of the American Revolution and the SR, the brown shirts of the NSDAP. The main narratives is the Great Replacement, also called white genocide, violence by non-whites against whites. So it's a narrative driven by self-defense and superiority. The best strategy is to be as unpolitical as possible, to be as appealing as possible. They were bored of the, or frustrated of the infighting between different right-wing extremist groups. So this is why the requirements for such a group are actually quite low, a low threshold to start such a group. It's not very political, right? The politics comes once you're in the group later on, but they are not really appearing as a political organization. Here you see a couple of pictures from Great Britain, obviously France, and from the Netherlands. I'm happy that Or Goldenberg is here to talk about the Dutch network. They promote a fake public image of self-de-radicalization because all the key people in this network have a violent background. They've been involved in several other groups, but they now pretend to be de-radicalized in a way. Other core active club principles are make fascism fun, to keep people involved. They're saying we don't need swastikas, we don't need uniforms. A group of strong white men is a fascist statement in itself, and white unity at every opportunity. Now, the profile of a prototype active club member is they don't want dangerous looking people. They don't want nihilist, crazy looking people. They want people, as they say, quote, members of the SS, not over the top, normal guys with families. The key selling point actually is fragile masculinity with a tendency for violence. They look for men who feel that they need empowerment through white supremacy. Women play generally no role in active clubs. There are a couple of active clubs who have female members. A couple of active clubs have groups for the wives and children of their male members, but that's something also we can dive into later. The recruiting, yes, they are online. They use every available tool. So they're on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, and so on. But this is actually an offline movement. They try to pull people into actual physical meetings and exercise. So they go recruiting where people are that could be recruited. These are boxing and MMA tournaments, gyms, and so on. You see it, festivals, even high schools are a topic. Again, addressing and attracting male fragility, there's a curated story of victimhood, humiliation, and then empowerment through white supremacy, which is always in the mix of the key narratives, but here it's in the front line. They're not supposed to talk about the Jews and history when recruiting. They should rather focus on positive things, for example, brotherhood, community, fitness, and so on. And a very distinctive feature here is that they're not territorial. So active club members can be members in other organizations. They cooperate with anyone who's willing to cooperate. This is designed to grow a larger network. Now, in the US, there's a vast variety of clubs, at least 50 in at least 38 states. This is like a temporary map. Not all of these clubs show that they're actually active in terms of documenting what they're doing on various messenger services, for example. The key point here is this is an open network. Anyone can start an active club as long as they follow the basic principles. If they don't follow the basic principles, they will be singled out by the main account and will be declared heretics or pretenders. So there's no central steering, there's no central command. This is like an open network, open franchise strategy. The active clubs run on their own. They don't need me anymore. That's what Robert Rondo said 2 years ago. He's been undercover and arrested since then, and the network is growing. This is the European dimension, what I've found so far. So 53 active clubs in 22 European countries. The picture on the bottom shows a major meeting in November last year at the Independence Day March in Warsaw. CEP also has a major report on that march as a key event for the extreme right in Europe. And here you already see active club flags and also other groups coordinating, meeting, demonstrating together. Now, the key point of this part here for me is to differentiate between many extreme right groups and parties that are involved in some sort of fitness or combat sports and the active club strategy, right? So we go through the left side, it's fitness and other things. They often include women or have groups for the wives and girlfriends. There's a classic central command, classic hierarchical leadership, a Führer principle to some degree. There's a public display of neo-Nazi symbols, if legal, in the country. Anti-Semitism is very visible. They will be posing with arms, weapons, firearms, or also maybe even show that they're doing some sort of militia-like training, if that is what they decide to do. And of course, there's lots of marches and other political activism. Now, the active club strategy from the US, the original, is also about fitness, combat sports, and hiking, but rarely includes women. It's an open network, no central leadership, operationally independent groups. There's no public display of swastikas. Some still do this. Some active clubs do not follow the basic strategy, yes, but the strategy says, no, we don't want to scare people away or draw attention with references to National Socialist Germany. Anti-Semitism is a huge priority for the active club, but not in their propaganda. They're not supposed to show that they're anti-Semitic immediately. This has slightly changed since October 7, and we can talk about this. They do militia and military style trainings in secret, but only document the sports training. There's no public posing with firearms, even if it's legal in your country. And I've shown you or told you that I found some examples where they still did this, but this was a mistake. And they're not really about politics. They're about building a militia. Now, as a case study, since CEP was asked by the Australian government to contribute to their inquiry into right-wing extremism in Australia, my colleague Joshua Fisher-Birch and I wrote a paper for that. And here now is Australia, right? And there's, I mean, two groups from Australia. There's the National Socialist Network. I mean, the name is pretty clear. And on the bottom, you see the European Australian movement. These are basically two arms of the same movement. And the guy in the suit, Thomas Sewell, is the leader of both organizations, basically. So they do sports, they do marches, they do hiking, they do combat sports, weightlifting, all the things that a lot of organizations do. Now, 2 days ago, they declared they're an active club. Right? You see the red cross if you go to the left where the National Socialist Network is. So they just came up with this idea. Thomas Sewell has been hosting public spaces at X with several thousand participants discussing the active club strategy, basically saying the Australian take is different from the US take, right? Because this is like from a few hours ago on their Telegram channel. So this Crow Eater Active Club FAQ, who are you? We are that movement. We are actually the Thomas Sewell community. So they're not even trying to pretend that they changed. So this is still not an active club in my book or in the book of the original US strategy, despite the fact that they now claim they are. And this is true for a lot of organizations. Now here you see the photo on the bottom right, you see people from the European Australian movement in Finland visiting them just a few days ago. And interesting here is, of course, the background with the Hammerskins, right? So they're in a Hammerskins gym maybe, and we can talk about the role of the Hammerskins, a very old school clandestine neo-Nazi movement in the creation of the active club network worldwide. Now here, this happened last Saturday in Paris. These are several hundred, they claim more than 1,000 right-wing extremists commemorating the death of a member of one of the organizations. This is not an active club event, but active club members from Connecticut, US, Southern California, US, the Netherlands came, joined, and then took this nice group photo just a week ago. So again, they use different kinds of meetings to coordinate, to cooperate. The logos you now have seen, there's on the left side, mostly American logos. On the right side, the French active club network, which in my estimate has the most chapters, active chapters, but you might have seen this a second ago. There's now an active club, Gmania. This is just 10 days old. They just started this and already they have 8 chapters. Now, when I looked at this symbol, I was thinking, wow, this dagger, that looks familiar. Where have I seen this dagger? So this is the dagger of the Hitler Youth, right? So they're showing a neo-Nazi symbol without showing a neo-Nazi symbol. So the original version here, it is illegal to show this symbol in Germany. So that's why it says it's punishable, it's illegal. But this is the same dagger. So the German active club network has a clear reference to National Socialist Germany without saying that they have that reference, right? Another group would actually have the swastika here. These guys have the 14. 14 is the 14 words. You see them here, which is a key essential slogan and even narrative in the extreme right network. Here also you see a t-shirt that is being sold by the US network, including that same Dagger, interestingly combined with the code of the Waffen-SS. My honor is my loyalty. Now, if you're interested in this new German network, I just published a policy brief. They announced it big in a right-wing extremist magazine, NS Heute, National Socialism Today, and they described the Active Club network as the solution, as the refuge, as the path forward from all the problems that the national resistance, quotes, in Germany is facing. Now, why is this of concern in general? In Canada, for example, several members of the Canada Active Clubs were previously members of the Atomwaffen Division, a designated terrorist group, and also, again, Hammerskin's involvement, as you can see here. Now, the idea is to hide in plain sight, and I was actually quite pleased that an episode of Law and Order, an American TV show, also picked up on the active clubs, and it seems that they read our report. So hiding in plain sight, if even mainstream media have picked up that this is not about combat sports, they don't expect the Day X to be a boxing match on the streets. Now, recommendations for law enforcement: don't get fooled by this. We are just working out. We're just a bunch of racists having fun and doing sports. Investigate what is happening in your country. Violence without manifestos. Members of this network will not do violence with manifestos until the day X, that specific event, arises. So the violence they will commit will look like random violence. It will look like a pub fight. It will look like an argument on the train. So what one can do is monitor the possible increase or monitor violent events in the areas where active clubs are present. As I said, there will be no declarations of responsibility until the day X, according to their own logic. For more detailed recommendations, please contact CEP, because we are very careful with sharing detailed opportunities to disrupt such phenomena. For policymakers, it's a new strategy. It's not just neo-Nazis working out. Again, investigate what the clubs are really about in your country. We're not saying all active clubs follow the US strategy, but to find out, you have to look at them carefully, exchange good practices with other governments affected by this phenomenon. And again, we have more recommendations which we're willing to share with policymakers. Thank you very much.